My wife secretly put a GPS tracker on my car then lied about it. She said, "It's for insurance, they lower premiums when you drive less." A week later, her sister slipped and said, "So how's your divorce prep going?" I said, "Oh, we're past prep. She's been served." My name's Alan. Just a guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, who lived most of his life thinking if you worked hard, treated people right, and kept your promises, life would somehow honor that. I'm 46 now, but back then, I still had that naive part of me that believed loyalty meant something. When I first met Monica, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. She was sharp, funny in this dry, clever way, and she had this magnetic pull that could turn the quietest room into something electric. We met at a friend's barbecue over cheap burgers and even cheaper beer, standing by a rusted-out grill while arguing over whether you could actually ruin potato salad. I fell fast. I always do. She laughed at my dumb jokes and touched my arm when she spoke. 3 years later, we got married in a small church outside town with 75 guests, a two-tier cake from Kroger, and a DJ who played too much Bon Jovi. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. We bought a small house in a sleepy subdivision where everyone still waved at each other. I worked long hours in HVAC, spent my weekends fixing whatever broke around the house, and Monica worked part-time at a marketing firm downtown. We weren't rich, but the bills were paid. Dinners were usually leftovers, vacations were road trips in my beat-up Chevy, and Friday nights meant falling asleep on the couch watching whatever crime show Monica was in that month. On the outside, it looked solid, comfortable, but if you leaned in close, you'd start to see the cracks. The missed dinners, the longer silences, the way Monica's phone was always turned face down on the table. Still, I didn't see it. Or maybe I chose not to. It was a Thursday night, late August, when everything started to tilt. I pulled into the driveway after another 10-hour day, exhausted, aching in my knees and lower back. There she was, Monica, sitting in her car, engine off, staring blankly ahead. The porch light threw a wide yellow arc across the yard, making the whole thing look even stranger. I tapped the window. She startled like she'd been caught doing something wrong, then plastered on a bright, too big smile and hopped out. "Hey, babe," she chirped, too loudly, smoothing her hair. "Just needed a second. Long day." "Yeah, me too," I said, trying to brush off the odd feeling curling in my stomach. Inside, she moved fast, made spaghetti, humming some weird pop song under her breath, bustling between the stove and the fridge like she had somewhere to be. Her eyes didn't meet mine once. At dinner, I watched her twirl her fork in the pasta without eating much. I wanted to ask her what was wrong, but the words felt heavy, sticky. So I chewed and swallowed and told myself it was just stress. Her boss had been riding her lately, after all. It wasn't until the next morning that I found it. I dropped my keys trying to get into the truck, and when I bent down to grab them, I noticed something stuck under the back bumper. A little black box, no bigger than a deck of cards, with a faint blinking light. I didn't know much about tech, but even I recognized a GPS tracker when I saw one. For a second, my brain couldn't even process it. I just stared, feeling the first cold prickles of fear sliding down my spine. Was someone after me? Some psycho customer from work? Or worse, was someone watching Monica? When I brought it inside and slapped it down on the kitchen counter, she froze. Her face went white, then pink, then white again. She laughed, a short, high-pitched bark that didn't sound like her. "Oh, that," she said, waving a hand like it was nothing. "It's for insurance. They do that now, track your driving habits. Less driving, lower premiums. I signed up last month. Meant to tell you." She said it fast. Too fast. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it, and slipped the device into the glove box when she wasn't looking. But something inside me shifted that day, like a gear slipping out of place. I started noticing other things. How she always knew where I was, even when I hadn't told her. How she never left her phone unattended anymore. How she started taking solo drives to clear her head, but always came back a little too happy, a little too flushed. Maybe it sounds crazy, but after you spend years with someone, you start to know them better than they know themselves. You recognize the little lies before they even leave their mouth. Still, I said nothing. Did nothing. Pretended nothing was wrong, even when it gnawed holes in my gut. Then came Sunday. Monica's sister, Tanya, came over for coffee. They sat at the kitchen table, cackling about something while I fought with the damn lawn mower in the garage. It was one of those heavy, humid Ohio afternoons where the air sticks to your skin like plastic wrap. I wiped my hands on a rag, headed inside to grab a drink, and heard them through the open window before I even reached the door. "So," Tanya said, laughing, "how's your divorce prep going?" I stopped cold. Monica mumbled something too low for me to catch. Tanya's voice rang out again, playful and sharp. "Come on, you have to admit it's kind of exciting. Fresh start. New place, no dead weight holding you back." I didn't hear the rest. The world around me narrowed, like I was staring through a tunnel. My heart thudded against my ribs so hard it hurt. I didn't think so. Didn't plan. Just pushed open the door, boots clomping heavy across the tile. Monica's head snapped up. Tanya's smile died on her face. "We're past prep," I said, voice flat. "She's been served." Neither of them spoke. For a few precious seconds, there was nothing but the hum of the fridge and the distant whine of a neighbor's lawnmower. Monica opened her mouth, then closed it again. I didn't wait for an explanation. There was nothing she could say that would change what I already knew in my bones. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't shout. Didn't slam doors. I just grabbed my keys from the counter, walked out to the truck, and drove. No destination. No plan. Just me, the empty road, and the sound of my own ragged breathing. The sun dipped low over the highway, throwing long shadows that made the world look like it was slowly folding into itself. I ended up at a little diner just off Route 27, the kind that smells like burnt coffee and frying grease no matter the hour. A place we used to go before things got complicated. Before it started feeling like we were just two strangers playing house. Sliding into a booth by the window, I stared out at the parking lot, the cracked asphalt, the flickering neon sign buzzing above a row of rusted pickups. I must have sat there for a solid half hour before a waitress, Doreen, according to her cracked name tag, wandered over with a pot of coffee. "You okay, hon?" she asked, voice rough with cigarettes and life. I nodded. Lied. "Yeah, just tired." She gave me a look like she knew better, but didn't press. Just poured the coffee and shuffled off. I drank it black, scalding hot, letting the bitterness burn a path down my throat. It felt good to feel something that clear, that sharp, better than the numbness creeping into my chest. I thought about Monica. About the way she'd looked at me over spaghetti just a few nights ago, pretending everything was fine. About the GPS tracker she tried to brush off. About Tanya's words slipping out like venom from between smiling lips. I thought about all the moments I'd ignored. All the signs I'd dismissed because loving someone makes you blind in the worst ways. And for the first time in months, I let myself ask the question I'd been too afraid to face. When had she stopped loving me? Because it wasn't sudden. It never is. It's a slow bleed, a gradual chipping away until one day you wake up and realize the person lying next to you is a stranger. The waitress brought over a slice of pie without asking. "On the house," she said gruffly, sliding it onto the table. "You look like you could use it." I thanked her, voice barely above a whisper, and stared at the stupid piece of apple pie until my vision blurred. I didn't cry. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But there's something about betrayal that burns all the tears out of you before they can fall. I stayed at a motel that night. One of those cheap roadside places where the sheets smell like bleach and regret. The carpet was threadbare, the TV was bolted to the dresser, and the vending machine down the hall ate my dollar without giving anything back. It was perfect. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the water stains blooming across the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of trucks rumbling down the highway outside. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, it was full of broken dreams and half-formed memories. Monica laughing, Monica crying, Monica standing at the altar with tears in her eyes, promising forever. Forever. What a cruel joke that word can be. The next morning, I woke up to 8 missed calls from her. A couple from Tanya too. And one text that just said, "Please come home. We need to talk." I didn't answer. I needed to think. I needed space. But most of all, I needed the truth. The whole ugly, torture truth. Not the half-truths she had been feeding me like scraps tossed to a starving dog. So I went home. Not to make peace. Not to fix things. But to finally tear off the bandage and see how deep the rot had gotten. When I pulled into the driveway, Monica was sitting on the porch steps, barefoot, hair a mess, wearing one of my old hoodies like armor. She looked small, fragile, almost like the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But I knew better now. I knew what lay beneath that soft, sad facade. She stood up as I got out, wringing her hands like she was trying to squeeze the guilt out through her fingertips. "Alan," she started, voice trembling. "Please, just let me explain." I didn't say anything, just crossed my arms and waited. She looked down at the ground, kicked at a loose stone with her toe. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't." Still, I said nothing. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she tried to find the words. "I was lonely," she said finally, voice breaking. "You were always gone. Working, fixing things, paying bills, being you. And I was here, alone, day after day. It felt like I was invisible." I closed my eyes against the sting of her words. Because there it was. The ugly truth. Not an accident. Not a mistake. A choice. She chose to betray me because I was too busy trying to build a life for us to realize she didn't want it anymore. "I met someone," she said, almost too quietly to hear. "It's not serious. It just happened." I opened my eyes, stared at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger. Someone capable of planting a GPS tracker on my car, of lying straight to my face, of preparing to leave while still sleeping in my bed. I took a deep breath, let it out slowly. "Who is he?" I asked, voice low. She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. It's over. I ended it. The words fell between us, brittle and hollow. It matters to me, I said. She didn't answer, just turned her face away, ashamed. The silence stretched out so long it felt like it might swallow us whole. Finally, I spoke. A simple, devastating truth. I don't think I know you anymore, Monica. Her shoulders crumpled at that, like a house folding in on itself after the last support beam snaps. I didn't wait for her to respond. Just walked past her, into the house that suddenly felt like someone else's. Inside, it smelled like lemon cleaner and cheap candles, like she had tried to scrub away the sins with bleach and hope. It didn't work. You can't clean betrayal out of walls. You can't disinfect lies. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses down on your chest, makes it hard to breathe. I walked through the living room, the kitchen, down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. It was like walking through a museum exhibit of my own life. Photos on the wall, Monica and I at Myrtle Beach, laughing with sand in our hair. Christmas mornings with ugly sweaters and fake smiles. Birthday parties where the cake was sweeter than the conversations. All eyes now. Memories wrapped in cellophane, preserved in a life that didn't exist anymore. I found myself in our bedroom without realizing it. The bed was made, too neatly, as if she'd spent hours smoothing the wrinkles out of the covers, trying to iron away the guilt. On the nightstand, my alarm clock blinking 12 o'clock, the power must have flickered at some point. Or maybe it was just another sign that time had stopped meaning anything here. I opened the closet. Half of it was empty. She had started packing, not waiting for my permission, not waiting for me to leave. She had been planning her exit before I even knew there was a war being fought. I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, hands tangled in my hair. I wanted to scream, punch something, curl up and disappear. Instead, I just sat there, breathing through the ache. Monica hovered in the doorway, hands twisted in the hem of the hoodie. I was scared, she said, voice breaking. I didn't want to hurt you. You're a good man, Alan. The best man I've ever known. I laughed. A short, bitter sound that scraped my throat raw. Yeah, I said, looking up at her. You got a funny way of showing it. She flinched like I'd hit her. Good. A part of me, the part that wasn't raised to be kind and forgiving, wanted her to hurt. Wanted her to feel even a fraction of what was twisting inside me. You could have just talked to me, I said, quieter now. You could have said something. I tried, she cried, taking a step into the room. You didn't hear me. You were so busy fixing everything else. You didn't see what was happening to us. I shook my head. No, Monica. I didn't see what you were doing behind my back. The words landed hard, and she stumbled back a step like I'd shoved her. Good. I stood up, towering over her, feeling taller and smaller all at once. You didn't even have the decency to end it clean, I said. You had to track me like a damn criminal. Like some rat you were waiting to trap. Her face crumpled. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? I cut in, voice sharp. You put a GPS on my truck. You lied to my face. And you let your sister slip your dirty little secret while we were still playing house. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I swear. Yeah? When? I asked. Before or after you finished divorce prep? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence between us said everything. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. Didn't even stay upstairs. I grabbed a blanket off the couch, stretched out on the lumpy sofa in the living room, and stared at the dark ceiling until morning peeled back the sky. Monica slept somewhere upstairs. Maybe in the guest room. Maybe in our bed. I didn't care. The house wasn't ours anymore. It was just four walls and a roof full of ghosts. In the gray light of dawn, I packed a duffel bag. A few shirts. Some jeans. My shaving kit. Nothing else. She watched from the kitchen doorway, arms wrapped around herself like she could hold herself together if she just squeezed tight enough. Where are you going? She asked, voice small. Does it matter? I said without looking at her. She flinched again. I could feel her unraveling, thread by thread. Good. Alan, please, she said, stepping forward. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I finally turned to look at her. Took her in. Really saw her. Not the woman I married. Not the liar standing in front of me now. Just someone desperate to avoid the consequences of her own choices. I already filed, I said, voice flat. You'll be served today. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened, closed. Opened again. No words came out. I slung the bag over my shoulder, walked past her without another word. At the door, I hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay. Not because I forgave her. But because a part of me needed her to know I wasn't coming back. I turned once, looked her dead in the eyes. You broke us, Monica, I said quietly. There's no fixing that. Then I walked out. I spent the next few days crashing at my buddy Grant's place. He had a spare room over his garage, mostly used for his collection of hunting gear and dusty exercise equipment. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough space to think. Enough space to breathe. Grant didn't ask a lot of questions. Just handed me a beer the night I showed up, clapped me on the back hard enough to rattle my ribs, and said, stay as long as you need, man. We sat out on his porch, watching the stars claw their way across the sky. You gonna be all right? He asked after a long stretch of silence. I shrugged. Define all right. He chuckled, low and rough. Fair enough. For a while, we just sat there, the night heavy around us. Finally, I said, I don't even know who I am without her. Grant took a swig of his beer, stared out into the darkness. You're still you, Alan, he said. You just forgot for a while. I didn't answer, mostly because I wasn't sure he was right. The divorce papers landed like a blow. Monica tried to fight it at first. Called, texted, left long, rambling voicemails about how we could work through it, how we could rebuild, how love was stronger than mistakes. But love isn't a shield. It's not bulletproof. Sometimes, it's the very thing that gets shattered first. After a while, her messages slowed, got shorter, colder. Then came the lawyer letters. Disputes over property, over accounts, over the damn dog we rescued together 6 years ago. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about winning, about control, about trying to hurt each other just enough to feel like it mattered. It dragged on for months. The lawyers, the accusations, the bitterness. We fought over everything. Who got the furniture? Who got the cabin up in Boone? Who got the old vinyl records that neither of us had touched in years but suddenly meant the world? It wasn't about the things. It was about hurting each other, proving a point. By the third month, I realized Monica wasn't just angry. She was desperate. I learned from my lawyer, an old, sharp woman named Deborah who didn't take crap from anyone, that Monica had racked up serious credit card debt in my name. Quietly, behind my back. Tens of thousands. Maxed out cards. Loans. Even a home equity line she'd opened without telling me. All the while smiling sweetly over dinner, kissing me goodnight like we were living the dream. When Deborah showed me the files, I just sat there, staring at the numbers, feeling my stomach turn inside out. She thought you'd be too distracted to notice, Deborah said, tapping the paperwork. Typical. But you're lucky. We can prove it was a fraud. This isn't your debt. I nodded slowly. Good. I want her to feel it. Deborah smiled thinly, like a wolf showing teeth. Oh, she will. The court date finally arrived. I showed up in my best suit, not to impress Monica, but because I wanted her to see what strength looked like. She came in looking polished, but there were cracks. Tight smile. Nervous hands. Hollow eyes. She avoided looking at me. Her lawyer, some slick kid fresh out of law school, tried to paint her as the victim. She was overwhelmed. She was scared. She didn't understand the financial burden she was creating. When it was my turn, Deborah stood up and calmly shredded their entire narrative. Exhibit after exhibit. Paper trail after paper trail. Every lie, every hidden account, every secret credit card, dragged into the light. Monica sat there, shrinking smaller and smaller in her seat. By the time the judge spoke, it was already over. Ms. Callahan, the judge said, his voice cool, you will be held solely responsible for the outstanding debts incurred under fraudulent circumstances. Mr. Callahan is absolved of all financial liability. Furthermore, due to evidence presented, the court finds it appropriate to award Mr. Callahan the primary ownership of the cabin property. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just watched Monica's face crumble. After the hearing, I stepped outside into the bright, cold afternoon air. Felt like I could finally breathe. Monica caught up to me on the courthouse steps, tears in her eyes. Alan, please, she said, reaching out. This isn't fair. We built a life together. I looked at her hand, then at her. You burned it down, I said simply. Now you can live in the ashes. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I turned and walked away, feeling lighter with every step. Rebuilding wasn't easy. I stayed at Grant's place for a while longer, slowly putting myself back together. Picked up extra shifts at work. Spent weekends up at the cabin, chopping wood, fixing the roof, mending fences, both the physical kind and the emotional ones. The first time I spent the night there alone, I thought I'd feel lonely. But I didn't. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. My life wasn't what I planned, but it was mine again. One night, I sat on the porch, beer in hand, the cool mountain air brushing against my skin, and thought about everything that had happened. About Monica, about betrayal, about survival. And I realized something. I didn't hate her. Not really. She was a lesson, a scar, a reminder that I could walk through heck and come out the other side stronger. Months later, I heard from a mutual friend that Monica had moved into a small apartment downtown. The fancy life she wanted, the bigger house, the flashy car, the perfect Instagram marriage, all gone. She was working 2 jobs to pay off the debt. She'd lost friends, lost the respect of her family when the full truth came out. Even her sister, Tessa, the one who accidentally spilled the divorce prep secret, had cut her off after realizing how deep Monica's lies ran. Karma didn't always show up with flashing lights and loud sirens. Sometimes, it came quietly. A slow, grinding consequence you couldn't escape. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. She destroyed herself. All I had to do was survive. The cabin became my sanctuary. I fixed it up bit by bit. New roof, new floors, fresh paint. Make it cozy. Made it mine. Sometimes Grant would come up for a weekend and we'd fish at the creek or drink whiskey by the fire. Other times, I'd just sit out there alone, breathing in the pine-sweet air, listening to the wind through the trees. I wasn't angry anymore. Wasn't bitter. I was free. One crisp autumn morning, as I sat on the porch wrapped in a worn flannel jacket, watching the sun rise over the mountains, I smiled to myself. Monica had once said she needed more. More excitement. More money. More attention. Turns out, the one thing she really needed, the thing she threw away, was the man who would have loved her through anything. Her loss. Not mine.